We've very much today spoken about Class 7 racing and Autograss and the family. Autograss is a very big family, and unfortunately earlier this week then we lost one of the nicest members of that family. A gentleman that has raced alongside Simon for many years, Gareth from the Border Counties Club, unfortunately passed away on Wednesday this week. It's something that has been very heartfelt by so many people. You only have to look at Facebook across the closing part of the week and the tributes and messages, genuine tributes and messages that were posted in memory of this fine gentleman. Then just absolutely phenomenal. Our thoughts at this time obviously are very much with his family, Helen, Guy, Jade, the extended family as well. We've lost somebody within the sport. They've obviously lost somebody a lot closer. Now, Simon, I know that you're saying you've been involved for 35 years, and I think you've known Gareth all across that time.
Yeah. I met Gareth straight away as soon as I started going to the sport, and obviously we've raced Class 7 for well over 30 years now. You know, you can see on the screen there, that's Gareth's finest hour. You know, that was 2011 Class 7 Nationals. A wild final where I saw virtually everybody there, I think, cheering for Gareth. I looked on Gareth as a, seriously good friend over the years, but we had some run-ins. You know, don't get me wrong, I watched this national final and I was probably the only person in that field, apart from Billy's mum and dad, that was shouting for Billy, because I didn't want Gareth to win it before I'd won it. And it's funny, I told him about 6 months after, I told him that, and he just turned to me and said, "Don't worry, Simon, I'd have felt exactly the same." You know, I was gutted he'd won it, but obviously now as things have turned out, so glad he won it, so glad he won it. I'd known him right from the start. I met him when I started racing. I think I started racing about 6 months after him. He had a Class 7 straight from I first remember him. I had a Class 2 for the first year, but we went on to share a workshop. He built a workshop with a mud floor, and we shared it. My bit was covered in tarpaulin and his covered in steel, but that was it. We shared that workshop for a good while. We did a lot of work, a lot of bodging of cars, and we did a hell of a lot of racing, a lot of side-by-side racing. He was probably, of all the racers I've raced against, probably the hardest racer.
I had the pleasure of being on the field the year when he did win those nationals, and it was just so great to see, because whatever success he had across the years, he did have a lot of success. He was just always such a happy gentleman, and always so willing to help anybody. I say, I'm not a racer, so I came across him sort of like more in a social format. But I remember a few years ago we were all across in Ireland and struggling to put a meeting on, and we were trying to rope in people to do jobs that had travelled across from the mainland, and Gareth spent all weekend running the start line for us with no questions asked. He was just that sort of guy that would help anybody and do anything.
Don't get me wrong, we fell out on track, we had our spats. I had my own nickname for him. I always called him Blinkers, because I always used to turn to him and say, "You're bloody alright when you're in front or you're behind. You get alongside and you just don't see anything." He used to rub you and push you, and he was the hardest of the hard, but we never ever fell out. Never ever fell out.
I know that you both raced in the Border Counties Club, and I think you sort of like going back a fair few years, caused a little bit of a stir at one of the big northern meetings, the North of England Championships, when these two southern softies went up to mix it with the likes of Bumble and Mr. Holtley.
Yeah. We used to go every year. The two of us used to go up there, and before Bass and things like that, that's what you had to do. And we went up, we did North of England. I put Mike Holtby straight in the fence in the 1-8, and I remember getting booed as I went off the track. And it was. I see one of the tributes on Facebook the other day was somebody saying that's the first they could remember him, when we used to go there and race side by side. and mix it with those guys. But we had some bloody good times.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people did, and sort of like, there's been a lot of people speaking about the sad events of this week, and somebody actually said to me that if they put together a list of the top 10 good people in autograss racing, I tell you what, I think virtually 100% of those people would have Gareth in that list. I say I'm not a racer, so my experience was sort of like speaking to him around the circuit. He'd always got time for everybody, whether they were racing, whether they weren't racing, or anything like that. Very much a family man, and our thoughts, obviously, at this sad time, go out to Helen, to Guy, to Jade, and to all of his extended family, who, you know, we're missing him as a racer and as a friend, but obviously missing an awful lot more. One of the particularly poignant photos, I don't know whether you saw it, Simon, was Gareth with his national championship and his first grandchild.
Yeah. It was the proudest day of his life, as I say, you know, and we talked about it at length afterwards. And yeah, he did what he wanted to do, but his family was his big thing. You know, he got 2 grandchildren. He spent a lot of time with them, and it's them that are going to miss him. You know, it's really, really sad. But
yeah, it is. It's I know it's a bit of a cliche that's often used, but it's one of the good ones taken far, far too early. And I was just looking as he comes round and taking that national title, which, as you say, was so good. He was always a Border Counties member, never raced for anybody else?
yeah, always Border Counties, always BC9. He was one of the ones who taught me into having 59, because at the time, apparently, to be any good, you've got to have 9 in your number. So that's where I got my number. So yeah.
So there we go. He is going to be sorely, sorely missed. And Simon, thank you very, very much indeed for that tribute.
But for now, all we can say is rest in peace, Daddy G, Gareth Thomas.